Let me state as clearly as I can. My father was not financially involved in my business, not as a practicing lawyer, not as a board member of Burisma, not in my partnership with a Chinese private businessman, not in my investments at home nor abroad, and certainly not as an artist.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
Just a catching strays over here.
You're in for a hell of a show.
Keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs.
It's time for our main event.
Welcome back to the Ruthless Variety program, fellas. We've got a very big one here today. What you saw up top was Hunter Biden presenting himself before the Capitol steps. I mean, where do you want to start with this?
I would like to start with the last thing he said, which was, my father was not involved with me as an artist. Like anybody thought that Joe Biden was holding the palette while Hunter was waving the brush.
But I mean, what was really interesting, this was pointed out by a number of people, is the goalposts have been moved so much in this to begin with. When Joe Biden was running and he said, I never talked about business with my son, and then we learned that he had the office keys, and then we learned that he's on speakerphone with foreign leaders while Hunter's trying to shake him down for money, and now Hunter's like, I did not give money from my business to my like, how have we moved the goalpost this far?
Well, I mean, the goalposts aside, though, Smug, I mean, I think this is a victory speech. I think he's spiking the football.
He is.
I don't think he actually thinks he's going to be held accountable.
Nope.
And the only reason you mention the artist component of this is as a joke, because you think it's a joke.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like,
he's laughing in the face of Republicans. He's laughing in the face of the law. He knows his dad's underling, Merrick Garland, is going to protect him because he has protected him. He has protected him, and he's there laughing at everybody. I want Republicans to go ham on this. This is ridiculous. Don't file a motion. Don't be like, we're going to go look at the TPS reports and then double check if we're allowed to file a motion for cloture. Don't do any of that shit. Like, at this point, what will it take for elected Republicans to do some shit? Like, and this goes so far. This goes to the Republican AGs. We've heard, like, there's a half dozen Democrat AGs who have built careers now off of like, oh, I'm going to do some like fake Trump prosecution. Oh, I'm going to go after, Catholic. I'm going to go after Catholic priests for saying that they are a radicalized group. I'm going to go after parents for showing up at school board meetings. At what point do like Republican AGs, Republican lawyers start getting into this mix, and Republican lawmakers getting into this mix and going in on these people? Like, he's laughing. He's there when the whole purpose of him bringing up artists, just like you said, is because he knows it's a joke.
yeah, like just sort of minimize the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of. But I also think the fact that he felt the need to go there shows that the Biden administration itself is very concerned about the vulnerabilities that this guy has uncovered.
Look, it's obviously a liability, and I'm not trying to dismiss these things that are happening to Hunter Biden. I mean, there's serious legal jeopardy that can happen. All I'm suggesting is I don't think Hunter Biden thinks he's actually going to be in trouble.
No.
Like, I think this is a silver spoon fail son who's fucked around selling his father's name across the globe for illicit profit. And I think he thinks he's going to get a slap on the wrist.
Can we toss up graphic 4? Because I think that this is exactly what it is that this man is facing. Failure to pay taxes, 4 counts. Filing false documents, 2 counts. Failure to file taxes, 2 more counts. And tax evasion, 1 count. Now, they're all pretty serious. They have absolutely nothing to do with the larger question at hand that the House Republicans are trying to get at, which is, where is the nexus between Hunter Biden and Joe Biden as it pertains to these foreign contracts? And as you said, I think you said really well, Smug, like, these goalposts have moved super fast.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, this is, of course, that we'd never have a discussion. We've never had a discussion. I think his quote was, we've never had a discussion about his business.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, when you uncover testimony that is putting the current president, then vice president or former vice president, on a conference call with people.
Yeah.
Like that. Well, there goes that argument.
Yep. The other thing that I'd like to read is the headline of a release from Jamie Comer. Comer releases direct monthly payments to Joe Biden from Hunter Biden's business entity. Mm-hmm. These exist. The receipts are there. The media will not report about it because they're trying to protect Joe Biden.
So I think that's a really big piece of this puzzle, is that the reason that they believe that they're so untouchable here is not just that the Justice Department have only pursued personal issues, which are obvious, and they're held in the indictments, and you look at it and like any American walking and talking who did these things would be indicted for it. But they haven't connected any dots, and they haven't gone any further, and they haven't even expressed any concern about whether they go further. On top of that, you've got a media that literally for 4 years reported about a non-existent Russian collusion narrative, implicating all sorts of corners of the Trump orbit, including his family, that didn't actually exist.
Yeah, I mean, there's way more evidence, direct evidence, paper trail, that Joe Biden was in a corrupt deal with his son than Donald Trump was in a corrupt deal with the Russians.
I mean, they put pen to paper on the Deutsche Bank thing, right? Whereas
just wild conspiracy theories.
In what we have here, the headline that you just read, were actual bank receipts that went from a Hunter-controlled entity to a Joe Biden-controlled entity, and nobody's reporting on any of that.
Can the one funny thing I saw, because they had a whole breakdown of all of the expenses for Hunter Biden's business with these California charges, and there was hundreds of thousands of dollars to quote unquote entertainment and women and things of that nature.
There was $600,000 that went to strippies.
Yeah, but in all of those really terrible decisions, he still socked away $53,000 for his Roth IRA, which I think that's actually really funny.
He's like, I'm an addict. I'm not an animal.
I'm not an animal.
Wait, he put it in his Roth?
He put $53K in his Roth. I mean, because he's got a plan for the future.
It probably wasn't a Roth. It probably.
Well,
was
I'm wondering
SEP.
if he'd done
it was a SEP.
See, I'm wondering if he did SEP and then immediately same year backdoored it, because he doesn't care about tax liability. Clearly.
Yeah.
Well,
he doesn't pay his taxes, so what does he care?
But to your point, it's a very funny, precise move.
Yes.
When you're like, I don't know, I think this year I'm going to spend $800,000 on hookers.
Yeah.
Another couple $100,000 on blow.
I got to do some responsible tax planning.
But I mean, $53K, they allow that in the SEP IRA. So I got to get involved there.
Right.
We got to plan for the future.
Yeah, I really like what I'm seeing in this Vanguard 2040 thing.
Have you read the prospectus?
So all of this comes as the Washington Post reports that Hunter Biden is likely to defy subpoena as House GOP holds an impeachment inquiry. Again, according to the Washington Post, House Republicans on Wednesday will hold a floor vote to formally authorize an impeachment inquiry against President Biden, intended to strengthen their oversight powers as Republican lawmakers continue to investigate the Biden family finances. So all of this is in the backdrop of them actually getting to the point.
And one key thing in this, so you saw Andrea Mitchell saying that, oh, it's great that Hunter Biden is skipping this. You saw Democrats being like, yeah, he should skip this subpoena. Can I get clip 2?
Talking to you so much today, you're not going to want to talk to me anymore.
Sir, what's your message to people who defy congressional subpoenas on the January 6th committee?
I hope that the committee goes after them and holds them accountable.
Should they be prosecuted by the
I
Justice
do,
Department?
yes. Sir, do you support term limits?
Wow. So, I mean, I guess if Biden says that people who duck subpoena should be prosecuted, then he'll be more than happy to hand his son over to Merrick Garland. Or, if I had to guess, charges won't be brought. Merrick Garland's going to be like, it's okay, Joe. I won't go after your son. We will continue this.
I mean, it truly is breathtaking.
Yeah.
It truly is.
That's the level of it. Because, like I say so frequently, they don't care about hypocrisy. Democrats absolutely don't care about hypocrisy. They laugh at it. They think it's funny.
They're never called out on it.
I mean,
they have the luxury of laughing at it because the media never calls them on
which
it.
Again, going back to the artist thing,
hypocrisy is a Republican foul.
There is no possible chance that Hunter Biden is a legitimate artist. He knows what he was doing when he's selling his quote unquote art for hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yep.
Right?
You can pay to be a friend to the president's son.
It's graphed right in daylight, and he's laughing about it.
Just the whole idea, the fact that we're having this conversation, he's a renowned artist.
It's bonkers.
This guy's I mean, other than I think does good footwork. Other than that,
oh my God,
I think the footwork could be worth some serious cash. Everything outside of the footwork, in my view, is probably.
I'm so glad you're back. So you can bring us right up to that line.
Yeah, well, you got to get there, pal. We're an edgy program.
Yeah.
It's the ruthless, right? It's not like the toothless variety.
That's
program,
right.
you
That's
know?
right.
We got to get there, for crying out loud. I know that makes Smug uncomfortable.
It's a family program. But I guess it is tough to walk that line with Hunter Biden.
Did you guys hear this? So this is the Axios. I love this headline. Axios wrote a story called "President Feels Guilty, quote, guilty, comma, sad, comma, angry when son attacked." In private, no issue is more likely to anger or sadden President Biden than attacks on his son Hunter, according to people close to the president who've seen his moods shift when there's bad news about Hunter. For Biden, who privately expressed guilt over Hunter's ongoing legal and political fights, the next year will be emotionally fraught as Hunter faces new criminal charges that will be at the center of a Republican-led impeachment inquiry. The 81-year-old president has suggested by close associates that if he hadn't run in 2020, Hunter wouldn't be facing criminal prosecutions or be a target of daily stories in the conservative media, all while trying to stay sober and rebuild his life. Okay, all right. Look, if you're going to take it as face value and you look at it like, I'm sure that, like, you know, a dad who raises the profile of his son's troubles does feel some guilt on that. But the guilt itself is not something we should just kind of walk away from, right? I mean, the fact that all this stuff was happening. I mean, the reality of this, just recall, this is a guy who denied paternity of a daughter, fought like hell in court to try to ensure that not only did he not have to pay the maximum amount of alimony or whatever to this child.
And Joe Biden made sure that that daughter and the mother of Hunter's illegitimate child did not receive any security when they were under threat.
And could not use, remember, a big part of that court hearing was to ensure that the child itself could not use the Biden name.
Correct.
Yeah.
So let's not fast forward through that, is my point. You can't yada through.
Nice Guy Joe is such a myth.
You can't just like hand wave through that piece of the puzzle, because in my view, there's nothing here short of treason, which of course has not been proven at this point, but like what it is that they're looking into in terms of payments from foreign entities and whatnot, and whether that influenced policymaking, whatever. That's not there yet. There's a lot of smoke. It's not there yet. But that like fundamental integrity question is like somehow everybody hand waves through that.
To me, it's just like disgusting that the media writes these kind of fluff pieces of where they're like intending you to feel sympathy for Joe Biden. Oh, the poor Biden's going through this.
Yeah.
That poor family, like how much tragedy must they suffer? Okay, like we just discussed, Joe Biden personally made sure that his granddaughter, who he refuses to acknowledge, doesn't have any security when their life is being threatened. Okay, so he's a terrible guy.
He also,
Hunter denies this child his last name. First, he denies that he's even the father of this child. He doesn't want to take any responsibility for any of this, right? The guy's making hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars off of selling the family name, and he can't afford to take care of his kids or responsibilities. This family fundamentally shirks all responsibility. They think, oh, you know, we're just nice people, and these evil conservatives are forcing us to bang strippers and have illegitimate children.
Right.
And the cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon, little boy blue and the man on the moon.
When you're coming home, Dad, I don't know when.
But we'll get together then, Dad. Know we'll have a good time then.
And that thing, like, this is all, it goes back to Joe Biden was a terrible father. He was a bad person.
Also, he chose to run for president. Like, let's just level
It's all
set
he's
here.
ever wanted
Like,
in life.
The idea that we're supposed to feel sad for the most powerful person in the fucking world, he chose to run for president. You know what? He's choosing to run again despite all of these challenges for his son, who's trying to get sober.
It makes him so sad.
If he wants to be a really great dad, he could just step aside and go help his son, who clearly has a lot of problems. But it's not. It doesn't bother him so much that he wouldn't try to run for president of the United States again. And we're supposed to, as the voters of America, feel bad for him. Get out of here. That's insane.
This is a very sick and demented family to begin with. When his Joe Biden's son died, Hunter banged that son's wife.
Yeah.
Like, they're very sick people. They do twisted shit. This guy's had kids that are illegitimate with strippers, denies it, and we're supposed to feel sorry for these people?
Yeah, well, it's addiction.
What kind of a crazy ass... That's the thing, and that's the other thing is the fact that, you know, there was this really great tweet, I think it was Mark Hemingway who put it out, of like, they try to cloak this under, like, this is addiction, when all of this is enabling this behavior. For years, Joe's tried to be like, oh, he's dealing with addiction, trying to buy cover for this behavior, which enables it to continue. Because we know, at least through 2018, 2019, this behavior was continuing with Hunter Biden.
Also, like, all right, so he's so drugged out of his mind that he spends all this money on strippers and he commits, tax evasion, but he still puts the money in the Roth.
That's responsible
so,
stuff.
Like, he is aware enough.
Oh, yeah, I know. He's aware enough.
He's a drug addict some of the time.
Yeah.
And other times he's planning for his financial future.
Look, drug addiction makes people do crazy things. It may make you go bang strippers. It may make you make a whole rash of irresponsible financial decisions, as we've seen here. I'm not sure it enables you to enter into business contracts with Chinese nationals.
Yeah.
Or sit on Burisma's board.
That's like step 4 of addiction, is you have to run a Ukrainian energy company.
Yeah.
It's like the 12 steps, and then the one is like the doing the treason thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
you got to get to treason.
Make amends, apologize to your family.
Collect millions.
Collect millions on a Ukrainian board.
It's a classic thing you've seen with every fentanyl addict across the country.
Yeah.
I mean, oh boy. Well, you can tell we're going to have a time on the show today. We've got a bunch of stuff for you. We've got Chad Wolf in the house, which, if you don't recall, he ran the Department of Homeland Security under President Trump, back when they did actual Homeland Security. Like, the name on the building wasn't just a name. They actually did the Homeland
that was their
Security
job. They took it seriously.
Component of it. And he does an excellent, excellent job of not only explaining what's gone wrong here, but how you fix it.
But from a national security standpoint, this is the most important issue that we're facing right now.
It really is, and it happens to come at an absolutely perfect time because they're debating this very thing. And you recall in Congress right now, Republicans have demanded that if Democrats want to talk about national security and national security spending as it relates to things like Israel and Ukraine, that we're also going to talk about national security as it relates to the border, which is an abject disaster. And they don't want to have that conversation. In fact, so much so that they overtly go the other way to ensure that we have complete disaster. And so they've got a moment of leverage here that they're trying to make progress on Capitol Hill. Chad Wolf describes what it is that needs to happen for that, but also gives us some seriously scary shit. I mean, this guy explained some things that you kind of, I guess, you would infer could be possible. But for him to sort of confirm that these things are actually happening in terms of who's crossing this border and us having no idea about is really not good.
And someone who would know. I mean, like, the expertise that he can bring to this, huge gift to our listeners today.
Totally. So we're going to do that. We're going to do some Who Won the Week, which is what we normally do here on Thursdays. Got some variety in there, including D.C. Officially becoming Oakland. That we'll talk about with the loss of their sports teams. We're going to play King of the Hill and have a little fun along the way. What do you think, fellas?
Yeah.
Let's get it rolling.
Sound like a pretty good journey? All right. So let's start with what we're going to do from a winners of the week standpoint. This has gotten more difficult, fellas.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of winners here. I mean, there are things that you can talk about, standing out from the crowd, but when the guy who's in first place is like 40% up, it gets harder to say anybody else has won the week, isn't it?
I mean, that's why I think, we can expand this whole segment into not being who's the winner of the week of the Republican primary while we're 32 days out from Iowa.
Okay.
Well, I mean, look, you can we can handle it however you all want to handle it.
Look, I think that's a pretty good idea because we always think of the world in terms of winners and losers, and it's not always just about the Republican presidential primary. There are a lot of winners out there. And would you like me to offer mine?
I'd like you to just pontificate for a moment.
Okay, in keeping with this new theme, my winner of the week, Glenn Youngkin, governor of the state of Virginia.
Okay.
Because for the first time in who knows how many months, it's not a Virginian going into D.C. being robbed by somebody from D.C. It's actually somebody from the state of Virginia robbing the city of D.C. And what we're talking about, of course.
Oh my God!
An incredible table setter there.
Youngkin should put that on a press release. Man.
What we're talking about, of course, is the Wizards and the Capitals moving to Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
Because the owner of these franchises has determined that fans don't want to walk out of the game where the Wizards get their ass handed to them and then get just held up at gunpoint for their
It like really crushes the mood, you know? Like after you watch your team lose, you get raw.
Yeah, it's like, oh man.
It's like this is the 1-2. Like this really sucks.
Upside, you got cheap fentanyl right outside. You can just kind of work some of that in.
Right. The city of Washington, D.C. has descended into a crime region, and people are tired of it, and now they're voting with their feet.
Didn't the mayor put out some like statement or something being like, we'll give $500 million to upgrade the stadium?
Yeah.
Like real quick, she puts out this press release of like, hey, you know what? Also, we think we're going to give $500 million if you want to keep the teams here and upgrade the stadium. It's like
they're like, no, you know what? The stadium's okay, the seats are okay, but when people walk outside, they lose their cars, they lose their money, and they get mugged.
It's like $500 million. You can use that money to hire some cops and let illegal business be illegal. Don't legalize crime.
Yeah, let the cops
spend
do their
half.
job.
You know what? Spend $50 million. Save 90% of that money.
So
Spend $50 million on hiring cops.
I think we should just take this topic now since you've brought it up. We intended to talk about it a little later, but I think this is a good one. So the whole thing that's been going on in Washington, D.C. in terms of the discussion is not typically what happens with sports teams threatening to move. Typically, it's like we need a new facility.
Yeah.
We need tax incentives, if not just outright public money to do it. We need X, Y, and Z. And then there's like a multi-year battle for it. And then if it doesn't happen, then the team moves. That's not what's happened here. Literally for a year, Ted Leonsis, the owner of both the Wizards and the Capitals, has lamented the fact that outside of his stadium every day, there is an open-air drug market and rampant crime. And if you were to go out there right now and take a look at the corner of Gallery Place on 7th and, what is it, I or F, there's just a cacophony of people standing around, up to no good. Up to no good.
Not even the Chick-fil-A is safe there, folks. Like this is how dire it is.
It is.
There is no valet stand at any hotel in the country that sees as much transfer of car drivers as outside a Gallery Place.
Yeah,
meaning that like you drive your car in front of there, they're going to tell you to get out, give me your keys, and I'm going to take it. You're not going to get the number.
It's a new kind of valet service in DC. You just don't get your car back.
It's like, I have me take that off your hand, sir. Yeah. So
please enjoy the game.
But as a result, he's complained about this, and it turns out I read an article last week that was like, well, they have a grand total of 3 DC cops dedicated to home games for NBA basketball and NHL hockey.
Think about that.
In the middle of the most dangerous city in the country. And if that is the response to an ownership saying, like, look, we have a real problem here, they're not asking them for a $1 billion stadium. They're asking for some cops and try to enforce current law, by the way. And they just don't do it. Like, don't be surprised when the team's like, all right, I'm out.
I oppose this move vehemently.
I can't wait to hear your rationale.
I oppose this so much.
I can't wait to hear your rationale.
So here's the thing. 4 of the top 10 wealthiest zip codes in the United States are in Northern Virginia. It's because these swamp rats are leeches on taxpayers. They deserve nothing. I want them to show up if they want to see their team in their box seats and everything. I want them to get robbed because they rob us every day. Leave them in D.C.
It's a good take.
And these swamp rats should be victims of the crime that they're enablers of. When they're voting for Joe Biden, because Northern Virginia is like blue as all hell. Like Hillary Clinton's more
but
at
so's
home.
Washington, D.C.
Well, here's the thing: is everyone knows D.C.'s a
You think the
shithole.
people in City Center deserve a stadium next to them?
It's all these people who are from Northern Virginia who enable this kind of crime and shit so that they can scuttle home to their gated community in McLean. They say McLean. It's McLean. But they say McLean to dunk even harder on all of us.
Yeah.
Let these swamp rats have nothing. Nothing. You have to go into D.C. You got to get robbed. You got to be scared of the fentanyl zombies.
Robbed.
You deserve it, and you're an enabler for it. They deserve nothing. Don't let Northern Virginia have anything.
I got the opposite.
They deserve less.
I have the exact opposite take.
Okay.
When you don't have a right just by simply being a major metropolitan area to have major league sports. You don't have a right to have an NFL team. You don't have a right to have an NHL team. You don't have a right to have a basketball team. Despite population and everything else, you don't have a right to do that. There are certain social compacts that come along with that you have to agree to in order to be a place serious enough to host major league sports. Whether you're a sports fan or not, that is basically what our country has done to crown serious metropolitan areas. Like if you have an NFL team, you're a serious metropolitan area because there are a number of things that come along with it, but not the least of which is you take things like citizenry seriously. You take law enforcement seriously. You try to ensure that your community is a part of something. And like what this has basically become Oakland. DC has become Oakland.
Yeah.
What Oakland did was to say like, we don't give a shit about any kind of law enforcement.
We don't give a shit about anything.
We don't give a shit about anything. We're like, we're going to like make you paint a 1968 stadium with open air drug markets and like rampant crime and all of that shit. And every time you come talking about it, we're going to talk about defunding the police.
And Raiders fans are like, actually, I feel at home. Like, this is a shithole. I like this.
They like it. So, obviously Las Vegas just inherits
Takes them.
the Raiders and inherits the A's and all of that. So I feel like what's happened to DC is just desserts. Like if you're going to operate as a third world country, you're going to be treated as a third world country. And because we have a federal government that is literally incapable of policing our own at this point, the only thing that we have left is Major League Sports teams saying, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
And that's
totally
basically
agree.
what we've got.
I totally
These guys
agree.
are like, if you're not going to be a basic human, if you're not going to participate in a social contract that ensures the safety and security of fans, then fuck you. We're out.
Amazing.
And I love that. I think that's, look, whether it goes to Northern Virginia or Key West,
Yeah.
it does not matter to me.
Yeah.
I don't care where they ultimately land up. But you have to have some accountability for cities that treat people like that. And awarding them major league franchises that the world internationally views as major sporting events, I think is
But
not.
they'll
agree.
still be called the Washington Wizards.
Well,
you know what
but
I mean? Like, there's no
not,
loss
not
there.
if they move. Not if they. I mean,
That's the thing
here's
is,
the
don't
thing.
let Northern Virginia have it. Northern Virginia deserves less.
The point,
less.
The point that Holmes was making that I agree with is that major league franchises are a privilege. They are not a right. There are major cities in America. They are crown jewels of our society without a major league franchise. Austin, Texas has no major league
They don't deserve
sports.
it. They're horrible.
Omaha, Nebraska, no major league sports.
They deserve it.
You're telling me that Austin, Texas, Omaha, Nebraska,
Austin
Tulsa,
doesn't deserve anything. They're the same
Tulsa
thing.
didn't
Dude,
ha-
Austin
Tulsa
has
didn't-
turned into the same thing. They're full
Well,
of
it's
people
probably
who
why they
moved
don't
in
have
from
it.
they moved in from California and they voted to legalize crime, and you go there and it's just a bunch of
But
fentanyl
you-
zombies.
So help me,
That's my point.
Yeah, help me follow that because you're saying DC should keep the stadium
Because the suffering is
Austin
deserved.
doesn't deserve
No,
a stadium.
I don't want Northern Virginia to get it because I want the swamp rats to suffer.
Okay.
All right. But Omaha deserves it. They're good people.
I can agree with that, actually.
So Omaha,
Des Moines, for crying out loud,
Right.
the good
The people in Des Moines
Moines
deserve way more.
They should bring the Wizards. They send them to Des Moines and call them the Bullets.
Okay,
again.
so just like
The Des Moines ethanols.
as a
It's just corn being put in a grinder.
as a practical matter, like I don't know, I feel like it's sort of a split decision here because like
What, you elect yourself judge and jury?
Yeah,
on
did
this
you see
one?
that? What is
Well,
happening
It's
here?
incredible.
I think we all agreed Northern Virginia is the problem.
no, look, I think like number one, it's tough to take your kids to Chinatown these days.
Yeah.
And like that sucks.
where do
as
you
somebody.
park? You're going to get carjacked.
Yeah, and so Northern Virginia, better option in my opinion. I am concerned, however, DCA, that airport. I don't know if it's going to be able to handle the congestion and the traffic on Route 1 and whatever.
I kind of blow through.
They got to figure that out.
I agree with you, but I kind of blow through all of that because I know all that's going to be a problem. But I'm not actually interested in the health and well-being of these teams. Like maybe it's because I'm not. You know,
I like that approach.
Like
I'm listening.
I actually don't care what happens. Like they could have 6 people in the seats. It doesn't matter to me. The whole point for me is if you're going to have a city that runs like a criminal cartel, and then operates in absolute defiance of the social contract in every form or fashion, then you get fucked. I'm sorry. That's just the rules. And so here it is.
Yeah.
Like I said, Northern Virginia, you could move it to Key West. You could move it to Havana for all I care. Like it really doesn't matter as long as it's not rewarded by the one thing we've got, which is Major League Sports, in basically crowning what is a serious city and what's
Right.
not.
They could put them off Father Hurley Boulevard.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't matter.
Or the Spur.
They could put it right at the Occoquan.
You know, right down at the Occoquan.
And to go back a little bit is, first off, these teams are horrible to begin with. for wherever that they are put. You're going to have local electeds basically screw over taxpayers as hard as they can to subsidize a stadium. They're like, listen, you know, our highways are going to suck ass. You're going to have potholes everywhere. This entire town's going to be a mess, but I will give all your money for this third-rate team to have a stadium and lose half their games. You know, the hell with them.
This is the nerd. Hate sports.
This is the attitude.
Yeah, let's play
that brings
checkers
you,
all night.
Yeah.
This is the attitude that brings you Russell Wilson.
See, that's the thing is, taxpayers are paying for Russell Wilson. Taxpayers are paying for this. It's a terrible deal to begin with.
Why can't we listen to classical music?
I think there should be more misery. All the people involved in this decision deserve misery.
I hope
keeping things going as they are is what is maximizes misery for all the terrible people. For the Northern Virginia swamp rats and for the DC fentanyl zombies.
I hope Ovechkin breaks the goal record in the NHL
in Northern Virginia. That would be such a great thing.
Hilarious.
I would love that. All right, so Duncan, what do you got? What's your winner?
My winner is a very smart man who has deferred a lot of taxes, which is, I think, one of the most important things a responsible man can do, as we learned from Hunter Biden.
It's one of the greatest joys in life.
And that's got to be Ohtani.
Oh, yeah.
Great
with
winner.
the $700 million contract.
Yeah,
Great
Shohei
choice.
Ohtani.
Yeah, so, you know, you see that number, $700 million, and you're like, wow. So that's $70 million a year. No, he's going to get paid, what, $2 million?
Yep.
And he's deferring a bunch of that income to the end of the contract term.
Yeah, the Bobby Bow style.
Yeah, where he can, like, I don't know, maybe move to a state that has no state income tax.
Yeah.
And
he moves like 3 hours east to Nevada, and then it's just no state income tax.
So California, Gavin Newsom, those assholes get none of it.
Yeah.
And that is great. And that is why he's my winner of the week.
Oh, that's so good. What a solid take.
And I also said I was very proud of us because when we started having this discussion about this guy's contract and then that news broke, it wasn't like the standard, you know, discussion that you're seeing on ESPN of like, oh, is this person worth 700? Instantly, we're all like, is this the best way to tax defer?
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good point.
Is it better to get $70 million up front and then compound that off of an 8%, like, you know, asset appreciation?
Think about that.
It's a good question.
It's a good question.
You gotta crush the Excel and do the numbers.
Well, because what is that $680 million that he's deferring going to be worth in 10 years when you take in like the rise of inflation versus compound interest on $10 million for the 10 years? For 9 years, for 8 years, for 7 years, you know, versus a 14.5% state income tax.
I might actually sit down with Excel and do it because
I'm sure he's got an army of accountants who work through the entire thing, but I'm just very glad California isn't going to get a cent of it.
That is a good point.
All right, Smug, what do you got?
Well, I'd say my winner of the week is Hunter Biden because he showed up to D.C. He showed up in front of the Capitol and put up his middle fingers and bounced. I think this should be a wake-up call to every elected Republican in this country that they are laughing at every Republican voter, they're laughing at every conservative, they're laughing at every elected Republican in this country, and they will continue to do so until someone holds them accountable. And holding them accountable does not mean filing a piece of paper and releasing a statement. Holding them accountable means there's need to be handcuffs on these people right now because there are Republicans who are showing up in mugshots for not doing crimes, and these are criminals who are walking the streets and flipping off the Capitol. So my winner of the week is Hunter Biden because he knows so far there have been no consequences for his actions, and he needs them now.
I like it. It's good.
Very hardcore.
I think Jamie Comer would probably object to that statement. But,
well, we'll hear from him soon. He's going to be a guest in the program soon, and we'll get a point of view. I happen to think that the only reason that any of this is happening at all is because of Jamie Comer.
Yeah,
and all of that.
You're exactly right.
I mean, it's not like the media was holding anybody accountable.
They weren't even going to ask.
If not for now, what a one-seat majority, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We probably wouldn't have seen Hunter Biden, frankly, other than showing up at a state dinner in Longtails, which is like doing the penguin walk with the.
No more penguin
Princess
walks,
of
only
Wales.
perp walks. We need handcuffs now.
Yeah.
Handcuffs now. That's my message. Handcuffs now.
I'm in such a dark place, guys.
Yeah, let's go. Do you want to explore that?
I do.
Well, get down on the couch and I'll be your therapist.
Well, because you normally go through this thing, and you can tell by the way we set this segment up. I normally go through this thing and like, well, what good things happened in these campaigns? And it's like, oh, Governor Sununu endorsed Nikki Haley. Like, that surely has some resonance in New Hampshire or whatever. And then you see all the polls, and it's like, I don't know, it's like 40% difference between Trump and everybody else.
Right.
And then you look at the national polls, and well, first of all, you look at the primary polls, and like 75% of Republicans believe that President Trump is best equipped to beat Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Which is a factual inaccuracy. Like, it's just not true.
According to polling which has come out.
It's just not true. And we've watched this over 6 years. It's not like a data sample. It just came out in the Wall Street Journal. It's like we've just watched this. And the failure to prosecute that argument in and of itself bothers me. It bothers me that we are in an unprecedented situation with a geriatric who literally can't speak, has no way of getting out of any world problems at all on the Democratic side. But my expectations for what they would do, even if he could, are so low, like my trust level there is gone. So you look at the Republican side, and it's like nothing matters. You're going to have 91 indictments that are litigated at some point over the next year, and nobody gives a shit. They've had 4 presidential debates. The guy like laughs and flicks him off, and everybody's like, "Oh yeah, no, that's my guy." And like none of the typical shit that you see in a presidential election that litigates who the best choice is to lead our country is being done at any level.
Well, yeah. Let me just put a finer point on it from all of the recent polling. We talked about it on the show on Tuesday, but 73% of likely caucus goers in Iowa think Donald Trump can beat Joe Biden in spite of his legal challenges. But the New York Times Siena poll that came out, like a month or so ago, where, Donald Trump was leading by 5, 6, 8 points in a lot of these swing states across the country. If he was a convicted felon, there's a 20-point swing with independent voters. And I can understand, like, if you're listening to this and you're a Republican and you like Trump, or you are a conservative, you're like, well, that's crazy. Doesn't everybody see this for what it is? Well, I thought it was crazy that they ran on January 6th in 2022. I thought that was insane. I didn't think there would be the resonance with the electorate. I was wrong.
There was deep resonance.
That there is deep resonance with suburban voters, with independent voters on this shit.
Yeah.
And like right now, it's all theoretical, and we're thinking, well, this is going to be easy. Joe Biden's a dementia patient. John Fetterman's a senator. Yeah. Joe Biden could be reelected. And it is more difficult if Donald Trump is a convicted felon. That is just a fact.
It's incredibly key. Like, Duncan brought this up when the poll first came out. He brought it up in detail, and I really hope it sticks with people. And I want to remind people that independent voters, the second that Donald Trump is convicted of anything, they're done with it. They're gone.
And look,
in massive numbers.
That doesn't make it fair. That doesn't make it unfair. It makes it objective reality of something that is likely to happen, like gravity.
Yeah.
Like, it's a thing that's going to happen. So as a Republican, you have to think, what's the most important thing to you?
And I guess what has given me this black pill that I've watched.
I'm there too, pal. I mean, I was there with the bourbon, with the boomers last week.
Yeah,
and the bourbon.
It's like, what's going to happen. But I also can foresee a scenario here. We're in unprecedented territory. You can understand how you could have 3 trials in the course of the next 9 months, at least one of which, the documents case, at least from our standpoint, what we're told by serious legal people, has a real chance of landing on this guy.
Mm-hmm.
The appeals on the Jan 6 stuff or whatever will go on forever. But you can understand how you could get somebody who was convicted of multiple felonies that's all of a sudden has the Republican nomination, and then you're in the middle of July, where they do a convention, and then what?
Well, let me accept all of that and raise it even more. The special prosecutor or whatever, Jack Smith, Jack Smith, is now trying to pre-vet an immunity decision with the United States Supreme Court before that January 6th trial.
He's trying to jump the appeals court.
He's trying to jump because what he ultimately wants to do is convict Donald Trump in that case and not have a long appeals process where they take it to the Supreme Court. They want that decided already. So you can end up in a situation where he's been convicted twice before the convention. And all right, so we've got Governor Kim Reynolds in Iowa supporting Ron DeSantis. And I have to think Ron DeSantis is going to do well enough to come in second there. And Iowa, it's a more conservative electorate. He's done a lot of work on the ground there. Then you've got Governor Sununu in New Hampshire endorsing Nikki Haley. I expect she'll do well there, likely come in second. So we've got a split decision for who's going to go mano a mano with Donald Trump. And then we get past South Carolina, which I, expect, if all the polls are correct today, that Donald Trump wins that too. And then what? and the reason why I say that those first three are important is because then we get into this mass sprint before it might be that Donald Trump's a convicted felon. And I think at that point,
how is nobody having this conversation? Is my only point. How are we not having a conversation, not just as a Republican Party, but as a electorate writ large, where we're seriously going to nominate somebody who's incapable of doing the job versus somebody who could be a convicted felon, and then understand what happens when we get into that. And the reason I highlighted the convention timeline is because we are in a balkanized Republican Party. You're in this often in contentious primaries, although this one has been a runaway. But I'm not sure how you can heal in that circumstance.
So can you you ever watch The Big Short, that movie, The Big Short, or read the book? One of my favorite lines from that, and it sort of explains the 2008 financial crisis and why people didn't see it coming, was people don't like to think about bad things happening, and so they constantly underestimate their likelihood.
Yeah.
And that is what's happening right now.
Yeah.
Because if you get to a point in which Donald Trump runs away with the nomination, and we haven't had a real contest of ideas of how we go forward as a party, and he is the presumptive nominee is indicted twice, and the polls fucking crater, what do you do then?
Yeah, what's the plan?
You can't replace him, because if you replace him, then you balkanize the party and suppress turnout, and we have a terrible election. You go with the guy who's going to swing the points, 20 points with independent voters when he's a convicted felon. None of it's good.
Yeah,
the Trump people have to have an answer for that, and the other candidates need to prosecute that case. That's
it's
what
not
the
as easy
Republic.
as just saying it's two systems of justice.
No, the Republican.
Because here's the problem. You may believe that, but nobody else does.
It doesn't change objective reality of what's going to happen.
This is all part, if you take the 30,000 view of all of this, of yes, I personally believe a lot of these charges against Donald Trump are absolute garbage. This whole case in New York, all of this is trash, specifically designed to poison his campaign and affect the outcome of an election, which is why I am stunned you haven't seen any Republican district attorney general in this country bring up any charges against Biden, because the charges in New York are absolutely ridiculous, and I don't buy any argument of we should respect the use of power.
No, I agree with all that.
Fight fire with fire. This, how has no Republican AG filed any charges against Joe Biden? To me, it is stunning.
But what you just said in prefacing that argument was that you personally believe that there are two systems of justice, and he would never have been prosecuted if he wasn't running for president, wasn't a major political figure. That's the argument Joe Biden just made for Hunter Biden, excusing Hunter Biden. It's the exact same one without even a comma. That's the exact same thing. Is that regardless of what he did or did not do, the fact of the matter is he wouldn't have been prosecuted if not for me being president of the United States. Well, Donald Trump is him. It's not his son. It's him. And he's put himself in this exact situation. And we're going to have to litigate this one way or another through courts of law that people distrust and will distrust more. And we're not in a place in this country where degrading institutions is a great spot for us. We're just not. But that's going to happen no matter what. No matter what. If he's found innocent, 50% of the country will think that the justice system no longer works. If he's found guilty, 50% of this country will think that this justice system no longer works. And then we enter a presidential election in which we spent the last presidential election not believing the results. What does anybody think is going to happen there? Legitimately.
Well,
So anyway,
especially
let me just conclude with this one point. My win of the week, doomsday preppers. I think doomsday preppers and people who have canned food.
Thank you for picking me.
Outstanding work, Duncan.
Because I'm so down on all of this at this point that I don't know how their trajectory. I'm hopeful. I remain hopeful, but I'm an agony and defeat guy, and I look at this stuff and I'm like, I don't know how the trajectory of it changes. I don't at this point. mean, if Donald Trump's going to win with 55% of the vote in Iowa, and there's not a real context, and he doesn't show up for any of these, debates, or doesn't even have, the need to have a contest at all, and he wins New Hampshire and he wins South Carolina and he sweeps through Super Tuesday while he's on trial.
Yeah.
Like, how do you change any of that? And if the Democrats aren't smart enough to figure out that a geriatric who literally cannot operate the basic powers of government isn't the best candidate, like, where are we?
Yeah, I think, if you think about it this way, 75% of the country doesn't want Trump versus Biden, because all the Democrats don't want Trump and half the Republicans don't want Trump. And the inverse is also true. Every Republican doesn't want Biden.
Yeah.
Right? And half of them don't want Trump. So if you put together one of those Kamala Harris Venn diagrams, she loves Venn diagrams,
yeah.
You would see that there's basically 25% of the country who is controlling an outcome that is going to have a lot of people unhappy. And then what happens on election day?
Just imagine a scenario. Go ahead, John. I've cut you off.
Well, here's the thing. I know we need to move on, but I don't think it's going to be that simple, because if there is a scenario, and it's not unrealistic this time, where the presidential race is different than any other presidential race that we've seen since Ross Perot entered as a third-party candidate, when you have maybe Joe Manchin on a handful of state ballots, when you have RFK Jr. on some state ballots, you have Cornel West on state ballots, you have some random libertarian on some state ballots, all of a sudden you have somebody who wins the White House with 40+1 instead of 50+1.
Yeah.
And it is a scenario that we saw it during Bill Clinton's win in '92.
I agree.
But the country was in a completely different place then.
I agree. I mean, that is totally possible. And Kellyanne Conway made that point in the interview that you had. But what she also said, which I found interesting, was, with regard to the trials and whether Donald Trump's going to be convicted of these things or whatever. It's like, at the end of the day, they vote with the kitchen table stuff. And she said that, and I know every poll says that, and she's a pollster. But you have to overlook 2022 to believe that. Like, everybody lined up with our policies. They disagreed with Joe Biden and his policies, and then they still voted for people like John Fetterman. Yeah. And so what I'm trying to understand is in what scenario that ultimately benefits Donald Trump. I do see the polls that you see.
The scenario is a scenario
with RFK
where there are
like a
bunch of people and Trump's 40+1.
Right.
And I just think, to your point about what does the country do after, if Trump wins at 40+1, how does the left react to that? I don't think it's going to be very good.
No.
I mean, they were breaking windows and burning things.
In
2016.
And I remember in 2020, and I think this is important for our listeners to understand, after the BLM riots where they were trying to burn down cities, and they were doing it right outside of our office here in Washington, D.C., they boarded up all of the windows. Do you remember this?
Oh, yeah.
They boarded up all of the windows around our office building, not because of the BLM riots, which had mostly subsided at that point ahead of Election Day. They were doing it in case Donald Trump won.
Yeah.
Because they
I got a rash of
the
shit.
Left is insane.
I got a rash of shit for
power
suggesting that the left was going to not accept the results of the election.
And they wouldn't accept it
I
if
don't
Donald
think they
Trump
would have.
Right.
No.
And
they
that is ultimately why I'm really black-pilled about this. And you would just love a scenario in which there were other candidates out there that Donald Trump had tipped his hat and said, I fought for the movement, and the movement goes on, because the way that the pressure that's building up in this country with Biden v. Trump, I think
they would do the same thing
very
to
dangerous.
Any Republican.
Look,
they would say
agree.
Ron DeSantis is Putin's puppet. They will come up with all this bullshit.
Nikki Haley.
I get it that they would say it. Would the Democratic electorate feel the same way?
Yes, dude.
No, they wouldn't.
They would.
No,
dude.
dude.
These people are willing to believe anything they're told. They're willing to believe that Dylan Mulvaney is Woman of the Year. I don't have any belief that these are rational individuals.
I don't think they're rational either.
I don't care about that 20%. Yeah. I don't give a shit about that 30%. I don't care about the craziest amongst us. I really don't. Do they deserve some representation? Sure, I get it. I guess. But like what I care about is how you get to 50 plus 1. And that 45 to 50 plus 1 is unattainable currently to the Republican Party. It just is. We saw it in 22. We saw it in 20. We saw it in 2018. Like it's been a measure. And by the way, the polls that everybody's JOing over right now showing Trump with these leads. Go ahead and get into the demographics of that. If you believe that Donald Trump's going to win 30% of the black vote in this country, make your case, and I'll see you on Election Day.
Yeah.
And we can have that conversation about what happened, and it ain't cheating. Just trust me. When it shows up at 13%, where it will, then like don't say I didn't tell you so.
Yeah.
Because it is what it is. Like all this stuff for people who have been doing it for a long time is self-evident. Like we know what's going to happen. We have all that. Look, could Donald Trump win this election? Sure he could. There's definitely multiple pathways for Donald Trump to win this election. I just think that the chaos that ensues by having these two people as nominees are something that the country has downplayed here to a point of our own demise. Like it is a very dangerous situation.
Joe Biden is a clear and present threat. I mean, like the fact that during 2020 we had a summer of Democrats running amok, lighting cities up, and then businesses board up ahead of Election Day because they're like, well, the Democrats might come after us. Like, think about that.
Well,
because they know they don't face consequences.
They invent reality.
All those rioters got their amnesty. They were like, oh, that's fine. You're allowed to do whatever you want. Look what's the situation in the border. We don't know who these people are. They're getting put up in hotels in the Upper West Side of Manhattan, some of the most expensive real estate. They get put up for free. Like, this system has failed Americans wholesale.
Let's raise the stakes a little bit more. Those riots come back like next summer, and Donald Trump has been convicted in these cases, and people are pissed about that on the Republican side, and the left is pissed that he's still the nominee, and there's chaos outside of the Republican convention. And then Joe Biden decides graciously to step aside for Gavin Newsom to get 4 or 8 years more of liberal governance in this country. Think about that.
I mean, Joe Biden is like all he's wanted in life. It doesn't matter what he's had to sacrifice, what he's had to compromise.
But
because he left his original family to pursue politics.
But it's all fun and games.
This guy's a horrible man.
It's all fun and games.
All he's wanted is president. He'll never give it to
It's
Gavin.
all fun and games right now for the Democrats because they know those trials are coming up. But I do not seriously believe that if it came to July and he was convicted in this DC case or the Mar-a-Lago docs case or whatever, and he was still polling even or ahead of Joe Biden, that Joe Biden would still be in this race. I do not think the Democratic Party would take that risk. Do you?
I do.
Know.
I think they would.
I don't know. I don't think they have a lot of clear answers to replace him, to be honest. I think they're in that same thing that Larry Elder talked about, where you're stuck between a base constituency and then something else, and it's very hard to pass by this vice president, which they would have to do if they wanted to win. So I think that's very, very difficult. I don't think it's impossible.
Yeah.
But I do think it's very difficult.
But you look at that black vote or you look at the youth vote that doesn't want Joe Biden to be the nominee, as you just said about these polls that are sort of illusory, right? Like, Republicans are not going to win 35% of the black vote, right? But if that's still showing up in July,
yeah, it's troubling. I mean, look, if I'm a Democrat, I'm not comfortable right now.
I remember
Democrats will lose everywhere.
They shouldn't be,
They
because
would lose everywhere.
The youth vote wants Mahmoud Abbas to be their nominee. They won't be satisfied.
Dude, here's the thing.
With anybody else.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is like I remember the TikToks of 2020 when all the young people were like, don't make me vote for Joe Biden, and they all went and vote for Joe Biden. Dude, these people are lemmings. They will go out and they will vote for him because the Democrat Party is a tightly regimented
I think that's my
party
point.
with a militaristic wing who will go out and burn when they don't get their way.
That.
And their elected officials will absolve them of all those crimes. That's how they operate.
I just think people got to spend an awful lot more time focusing on this shit, because when you get to the back end of it, there's not a lot of awesome options. If you can imagine the day after Election Day in 2024, how we have a peaceful transfer of power that is the same that we have known in our entire lives, it's harder to imagine than it should be. It's harder to imagine.
scary.
It is.
Yeah.
But you've got to do, I mean, look, that's the reason democracy is democracy, because you have a right to say and do and participate. But if you're just going to be like, everything will work out, I don't know, man. Like, I just don't know. It just doesn't feel the same as it always has.
Yeah, there's that Frank Zappa song, "It Can't Happen Here," and it can happen here.
It does. It can.
It can happen here.
It's just it. I hate to cap off a segment with that, but
I like that. There's no hope, folks. Good message.
Yeah. All right, so should we talk some animals? Because I think that's a good, the best way to get out of this.
Always.
The best way to get out of this is there is a dude, and can we chalk up a graphic number 2? This is a guy, Brandon Rizzi.
Yeah.
Oh, hero.
Yes. No, well, hold on. Brandon Rizzi is a guy said he confronted a man who claimed that the Swan had attacked his children. The man is not Mr. Rizzi. Mr. Rizzi screamed, "Put the fucking thing down." His appeal was echoed by fellow parkgoers to put it down. Police arrested this man on suspicion of causing unnecessary suffering to a protected animal.
So for folks who are not on YouTube, again, you should subscribe, but you don't see this image. There's this dude who has a goose by the neck walking around with it. It's a swan.
Again, hero.
Dude, a swan is a goose with good PR. Like, this is a goose held by the throat, just like being walked around, bro.
He's what I like is that he's walking with it upright. He's like demonstrating a message to the rest of the swans.
Yeah.
How does anyone say anything against him? I would begin applauding.
Yes,
right.
This guy has clearly made it known. Humans run this.
It was lawless. This guy is the Kyle Rittenhouse. Of
let's
this pond.
Let's tell the audience exactly why. 4 words in this story, which conveniently didn't make it into the headline. It attacked his child.
Yep.
The guy was just trying to protect his kid. What are you supposed to do? It comes honking at him and snapping at him, and like you're supposed to just let it happen.
They're vicious.
Well,
They're vicious.
Listen, I give the guy a lot of credit for holding it up right there by the neck. I would have given that sucker a good swing.
Yeah, swing it around.
Just a good swing.
I mean, that was okay. So for again, like for the folks who are not watching on YouTube, he is marching with this goose by the throat. He has it lifted up, and it's just like marching with this thing.
And it's a big. Look at the size of that bird.
I love that image. That should be
damn
on
near as
t-shirts.
big as he is.
That's Resist right there. That's the animal kingdom coming after his kids.
He's got the tote bag on the other arm.
Like, what a dad.
Sometimes,
what a dad. Like, the kid sees this and he's like, my dad has my back.
He takes care of shit.
Sometimes, like in the Wild West, there has to be street justice.
Yep.
Like, he screamed, "Put it effing down," and his appeal was echoed by fellow parkgoers yelling, "Put it down."
At that point, you got to behead the goose.
Like
you behead the goose and you say, who the fuck are you people?
The crowd has ruled. This is like the Coliseum, and it's us or nature.
So they were saying put it down.
So
as in they want blood.
I read it the other way.
I read it the other
they're
way.
reading it as
they're saying put it down. They agree with him.
Oh, you're saying put it down like kill it.
Yeah, kill it.
I thought they meant drop it.
No,
they do. Dude, read it.
Put it down. Put it down.
This is Duncan's lies again. Duncan is lying. So
I think he fake newsed it.
No.
Duncan lied. It says he confronted the man and says, put it effing down.
Yeah.
His appeal was echoed. So
they were cheering.
This dude and the crowd are like a bunch of libs being like,
they had tears in their eyes.
Let the animal kill your child. Because they all want to kill children. Like, killing children is central to our belief system. Right? So at that point is when the guy should just popped it like a cork off a champagne.
So hold on. This is according to the Daily Mail, right?
Yeah.
And the guy who had it, it was not this guy, the Rizzi guy that we were talking about. This guy was Scott Price, 35. Mm-hmm. And he's now been charged with the attack. And this is in somewhere in England.
They got to free him. Price is right.
Price is
the
right.
The goose came for his kid.
Yeah. So.
This is in England? He's done.
Yeah, I mean, I think
goodbye, buddy. You're locked up for life.
This guy's gonna have a long Christmas.
Which is unfortunate because I just pulled up a website, NevadaFoodies.com, and I'm looking at a recipe for swan cutlets and gravy. And what I think he should have done,
a holiday delicacy,
a treat, taken it right home and put it in the oven. And he could have fed his family for a week if he had a refrigerator and he kept it,
Well, it's England. You don't know if they have like a refrigerator or air conditioning or anything to begin with. And number two, they're English people, so God knows how they're going to cook this thing, like the most disgusting way possible. Well, they usually go after it.
He didn't even kill the bird,
which is that's his mistake.
That was his mistake.
That's his mistake. Because now
the
that
bird's
bird
gonna
is going to
take the stand.
continue. The bird's going to continue its reign of terror.
The bird's gonna put him away.
I mean, this is England. The bird's going to get a knife, and then it's going to go after people. And you're going to see a bunch of British police just standing there being like, calm down, bird, and then they're going to leave.
Well, we
Like,
talked
there's
about
lawlessness.
this. We talked about this on several bike pathways where there were geese that were
Yeah.
Well, it was,
and
a, it was a turkey,
Right.
yeah.
that were
they
that
took
were-
care of it.
and
Right.
people decided to take frontier justice there. I mean, I assume Ashbrook, I got to go to you for this, but I assume the move is exactly what Mr. Price did here, which is you wring the neck of this sucker.
It's all you can do. If the thing is coming after your kid, you have to stop it. If whether it's a turkey or a swan or a goose or whatever it is, you're responsible to protect your child.
Well, whose property is a goose? Because if
Well, I'm
if
glad
it's-
you
if
asked.
it's not
I'm glad you
anyone's
asked.
property-
I'm glad you asked.
You
There
listen
is
to
a
it?
line in this story. It says, "All unmarked mute swans found in open water in England are regarded as belonging to the king
Are you serious?
Yeah,
What a fake country.
and
bro.
are
fake country.
and are protected by the monarch's Swan Guard."
So
You think the American government is too big and unwieldy? They
No,
have
dude.
a Swan Guard
I
in
mean,
England.
that'll tell you. I mean, like, what a fake country. Can you imagine that?
I thought we had
What a
declared
fake country.
independence from that.
we need to get a Brit on here to defend that.
there's no
nothing
way
to defend.
anyone could defend that.
There's
If
nothing
that
to
would have
defend.
like pecked out the eyes of his child, do you think he could like have successful litigation against the crown? It's insane. I think he was the gladiator in the arena, and I choose to believe, whether the article supports it or not, that the people were screaming for him to put it down.
But he didn't finish the job, and
He should've.
ultimately he's going to pay the price despite, and the Swan goes free. The Swan is free.
That's why he should have killed it.
Mr. Price is not.
yeah.
He should have killed it.
a
that's the
crazy
end of the
world.
day. It's unbelievable.
We'll put the recipe for swan cutlets in the description of the episode, just in case anybody is interested.
If you run across such a thing. All right, let's play a game, fellas. Let's lighten this up. I think it's Thursday.
It's Thursday, which means only one thing, and that is King of the Hill. I am defending champion with Sherry Jacobus. Mm-hmm. And I think, Ashbrook, you're playing, right?
Yeah, Smug didn't want to play, so I'm bringing Jennifer Brainworms
He
Rubin.
didn't want to play.
Well, I'm the judge.
Wait, I thought you were defending champ.
Duncan.
No, I am.
Oh, you're defending champ.
Yeah.
And he'll be.
Wait,
he'll
hold
be-
on. You.
I'm calling it right now. He's going to be defending champ again because this guy goes after me.
Oh, wait, this is
You're about to learn how the court works now, Ashbrook.
rigged justice.
It should
Two
be.
systems.
It should be.
Two
There's
systems.
no more two systems of justice in the country.
It's
Like,
just-
I'm not going to allow this court to be attacked.
It's just-
You're not Hunter Biden. You can't flip me off and get away with it.
Just Smug's system.
Good decision,
Yeah.
Judge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a Clinton
we
appointee.
should get right into
Well,
it.
I'm the bailiff here. I'll be enforcing some law and order along the way, and I'll see who's up and who's down, and I'll pair with that. Let's go.
Okay. What to play first?
Wait, I think
You
we should
going to
go-
let him do the ring announcement? He can do that at least.
Oh, okay. Well, let's go.
I'll
next.
allow it.
Jeez, I thought we were really changing the format.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please. It's time for King of the Hill. In the blue corner, fighting out of the Washington Post for a chance to reclaim her crown, Jennifer Brainworms Rubin. And now, in the red corner, hiding from her own Twitter account, and current champion of the world, Tommy Cherry Jacobus.
Let's go.
I mean, that's excellent.
Oh, that's great. Sorry I almost robbed you of that. It's always a little awkward when you're playing in the game while
Yeah.
you're also our great ring announcer. So we started off this segment, this King of the Hill, with I think, a totally unwarranted attack on our judge.
Yeah.
I'd like.
I
you
think
to
that's a
get-
good place to
I'd
start.
like you to get to your first submission.
Well, the
Ms.
reason why
Counselor.
I'm mentioning that is Sherry Jacobus also attacks the integrity of the court.
Wow.
Nikki Spaghetti, can you give me exhibit number 11, please? Sherry says,
God.
Donald Trump's SCOTUS, handpicked by Christo-fascists,
Oh, that's amazing.
are committed to and loyal to far right-wing Christo-fascist issues. They're not committed to or loyal to Trump. He was merely a means to an end, a vehicle, a ticket to ride. They outlast him. He no longer matters.
Oh, interesting.
So
It took a turn there.
SCOTUS has been handpicked by Christo-fascist Christians who are also
It's an interesting
fascist.
take, right? Because it's suggesting, unlike her long-held view that Donald Trump is the most oppressive human being that's ever lived, that the Supreme Court is actually much worse.
It's much worse.
And that they have...
and that goes because, like, right now the big Dem thing is they want to try and attack the Supreme Court. Like, you're seeing Durbin and White House go after the Supreme Court because that's the only branch of the government that's stopping them from total power.
And
that's why I think she's gotten the memo of, like, attack Supreme Court, attack Supreme Court.
And they've also sort of moved on from... what was it that they said? Ultra MAGA, attack. That was the Joe Biden attack in 2022, and now it's everybody's a Christian nationalist.
Christo-national.
Christo-fascist.
Christo-fascist.
Nationalist is not enough.
We're
for
now
Sherry
Christo-fascist.
We're now fascists.
Interesting.
And
I haven't seen that one a lot.
Yeah.
Yep. But we have seen it frequently from Sherry, my Sherry.
We have not seen that.
I'd like to go to Exhibit 1. Jen Rubin. No wonder MAGA Republicans hate Liz Cheney. No Republican is as articulate, persuasive, and passionate as the former Wyoming congressman in describing the threat 4-time indicted former President Donald Trump and her own party as currently constituted posed to the future of American democracy and international security. Not only is that a run-on sentence, it is perhaps the most unhinged description of Republicans today that I've seen in quite some time.
What do we have? One period.
It's not a Christo-fascist.
Honestly, this is like a combination of. It's like clash of the midgets. Like, this is both weak takes. This is a standard Jen Rubin, I like Liz Cheney take. And, Sherry usually, like Holmes pointed out, is like a good hard in the paint anti-Trump tweet.
Yeah.
But it took like a weird turn for being like, actually Trump is like getting played. So they're both actually really weak. But Jen Rubin is far weaker. Round 1 goes to Duncan.
I think Christo-fascist.
Yeah, that's that saved her. That saved it.
I mean, I only played it because it was sort of unique in that,
Yeah, that adds something to it.
All right, Rubin, next up.
Better be good, dude. This is headed to a 2-round knockout.
It's headed. The judges forecasted his decision.
Babe Ruth pointing from the bench.
This is worse than a Jack Smith trial.
Ashbrook is the Ashbrook is the Swan. Put him down.
Maybe Smug will play next time.
No, I will never.
I will never.
Okay, Exhibit 6. Please, Lee. The debate between Liz Cheney and Stephen at home about the degree to which Trump is the inevitable extension of the GOP or an aberration is a worthy one. However, now it is an unnecessary and unwise distraction. We need allies of all parties, ideologies, etc. to defend against Trump. Reconciliation, in quotes, panels, and historical debates can come after we save democracy. My own view, he's an extension from Newt Gingrich and the Tea Party and a leap into the void, but that's neither here nor there. So,
muddled, weak, and microwaved Liz Cheney take. What do you got, Duncan? Hopefully something better than that. I mean, anything's better than that.
You're not even a real Brahmin.
You take a knee, and that's a done deal, man.
Okay. Nikki, can I get exhibit number 9?
No resemblance of justice.
It's just outrageous. I feel like Trump. Walking into the Justice Department, Joe Biden's like, guilty, guilty, guilty. Merrick, arrest him. And he's like, yes, sir.
The Honorable Letitia James presiding.
So for the first time in your life, Ashbrook, you feel like a conservative.
Here we go. Here we go.
So here's Sherry attacking a great friend of the variety program, Megyn Kelly.
Oh, wow.
Extremism on all fronts is Megyn's only hope for a career comeback. Extreme rhetoric, extreme hair extensions, extreme wardrobe, extreme anger, extreme. Almost as if she's auditioning for Newsmax or Russia Today.
Well, I can attack the judge, and I think my attacks are well-founded, but I certainly cannot compete with that.
Oh, he's going to concede it?
That's the thing.
That's an honorable thing to do.
Well, that's just unbelievable. You got to have the judge litigate it.
Well,
I'm going to concede the whole.
I think that is honorable because, I mean, I could sit here for an hour and take that apart because that just reeks of straight jealousy. Like, Sherry's number one chip on her shoulder is she can't get on TV because no one wants her takes. She tries blaming Trump for that. And Megyn Kelly's built her own media empire.
And also, yeah, like Megyn doesn't need a career comeback.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
She doesn't care about getting a news show.
She moderated the Republican debate last week. She's built an independent media empire. She's making tons of money. Great for her. Who the fuck are you, Sherry?
Yeah. Well, and she's mad that
Sherry can't have a comeback because she never had one to begin with.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of the problem, right? I mean,
it reeks
not
of so
even a
much jealousy trying to attack Megyn Kelly on like looks or how she dresses. Like, Sherry is an angry person who tweets about feeding homeless cats.
yeah,
Like,
also a pinnacle of moderation. She's attacking somebody else for being extreme.
I mean,
love it.
that's stunning. And you know what? That take is just nuclear. Absolute winner from Duncan and an honorable move from Ashbrook, calling out how nuts that was. Winner and champion once again, Sherry Jacobus.
Let's go.
Well done, well done. A two-time.
Two-time.
Yeah, all right. Well, hopefully Smug gets back in the ring at some point, so we'll figure that out. But that's our cross to bear here at the Variety Program, not yours as the listener. With that, we need to go to the Honorable Chad Wolf. You'll love this. You're going to hate a lot of things he has to say because, honestly, it scares the shit out of me, and it probably will you too. But it's valuable information, particularly in the context of the congressional debate that's happening as we speak. I want to welcome back to the program a good friend, a guy that we've had on here at least a couple of times. It's been a little bit. Chad Wolf, how are you, sir?
Well, I'm doing well. Oh, well. It has been a bit. I think it's been about a year.
I can't believe that. We've had so much fun in the past. I can't believe it's been this long. But, I mean, look, it comes at a very good time because your area of expertise, and for those of you who don't remember, this is the guy that ran the Homeland Security Department under President Trump, did a hell of a job, but has a incredible innate understanding of a lot of challenges that we're facing, not just with the border, but the whole security apparatus about it, how it is that we ended up in this situation, and you know, how we can move on from here to better days, hopefully, at some point.
Well, if you haven't caught anything that I've said and done in the past year, it's only gotten worse along the southern border. Unfortunately, nothing has gotten better. And, you know, we are 34, 35 months into the administration, and every month it continues to deteriorate. And so it's quite remarkable, and we may have talked about this last time. It's actually very difficult to do what they're doing. It's not just by chance or luck. You've got to put an intentional plan in place, and you've got to execute on it day in and day out. And they're not dumb. They're just, we talked a little bit, they don't hold the same value set that I think the majority of Americans do.
Yeah, well, so I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that stems from commentary that Secretary Mayorkas has had about what their intent is in terms of border security here. And he often talks about it in terms of values and a value set.
That's right.
And I think you've correctly diagnosed that there may be an underlying issue there.
Yeah. You know, he says we've got to uphold our values. And that sounds great. I think all Americans would be like, absolutely, there's a certain set of values we need to uphold. But let's take a look at the values that they prioritize and they've built their program and plan and strategy around. And the first one is, let's let everyone in, regardless of merit, regardless if they have a valid asylum claim. Everyone is welcome into the country. Okay, so that's wrong.
Yeah.
It's actually against the law.
Right.
Right? But that's their value set.
And we do have black letter law in this.
Of course.
It's not as though there are laws that have not been passed addressing this.
Yes, they don't uphold the law.
Right.
The second value set that he believes he should uphold is that regardless of where you are in the world, the United States is the only country that you can be free from any type of persecution, which is a lie.
Right.
There are many countries around the world that are very safe.
That we're asylum.
That we're the only country.
Right.
And so that's why you have these unprecedented numbers of folks coming to the United States. But that's what they will tell you.
So I think, look, the first couple times we talked to you about the inevitable problem that the Biden administration ushered in with not only the way that they campaigned, but then reversing Trump administration policies that basically just sent a invitation to people to come to the border. And that was all true. But I think the point that you're now making is it's not just that. Like, we've seen that. That's come and gone. But it's been continued policy that's made us worse than we were at the beginning of the Biden administration.
Yeah, that's right. Here's how I break it down, right? And you can take it into different phases that we've seen almost over the last 3 years. The first phase was, I'm just going to tear down everything that President Trump did.
Yeah.
Because A, I don't like him, and B, I don't like him.
Right.
Right. So I'm going to tear down Remain in Mexico. I'm going to tear down the asylum cooperative agreements. I'm going to stop building border wall. I'm going to do all these different things that were protecting the border, providing an orderly process. They did that almost on day one, and you saw month after month after month, the numbers, the apprehension started to arise. And then over time, they started getting pushback. Like, maybe we went too far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe we need to stop this a little bit, but they couldn't stop it. Once there's that break in the dam, it's coming, right? And so that was like phase one. Phase two is, okay, we need to do something about this. So let's start talking about, and if you follow DHS, which I do.
Turns out.
I do. They start talking about legal pathways.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, that's interesting. They start talking about.
You would think you'd have to legislate on something like that.
You would think, unless you're the Biden administration.
Yeah.
So you come up with your own legal pathways. So they have this CBP One app, right? It's an app that migrants go on to enter the country.
An app. Come on.
An app that says you have to be in northern Mexico to get on the app to then get a date to come into the country. That sounds awfully like Remain in Mexico to me, but regardless of that, the cartels have figured this out. And they said, they have figured it out where you're in southern Mexico. They figured out how to get around the app to get you in. So they've done the app. They've done categorical parole, right? And so parole historically has been used for two reasons. One, if there's a benefit to the United States. So let's say we are prosecuting a very bad individual in the United States, and we have to bring people in to testify against them, right? But they're from wherever in the world, and they don't have a visa to come here. Then we put them on parole. We parole them in, and we have them leave. Mm-hmm. Or if someone needs a medical, attention, and they have got to go to the Mayo Clinic, or they got to go somewhere that is specialized, only that, you parole them in, you parole them out. Biden administration is paroling upwards to 50,000 people a month in.
Oh, are you kidding me?
Right, under, legal pathways. Legal pathways.
And what kind of criteria do they use for that? Anything?
Categorical. It's a benefit to the United States. And so they're being sued on this. They've lost a number of lawsuits on this, and it keeps getting appealed. So now they're starting to get pushback. So that's phase two. They're getting pushback by the courts. So now they've come up with, okay, now I just need to grant everyone from these various countries temporary status, what we call temporary protective status, or TPS. I don't want to get in the weeds here, but basically what he says is you're free to stay. So even if the courts knock all this down, we've given you status, and you're free to stay here in the United States.
So here's what I want to ask you, Chad, because the type of person who is coming over the Mexican border has changed dramatically over the last few years. It's not just like a Guatemalan guy coming up to find work. There are people from other continents, from Yemen, from China, fighting age men who somehow find themselves in northern Mexico and are walking across the border into our country. Tell me about, what's your understanding of how these people are actually getting to Mexico, and what is the Biden administration doing about it? Sounds like they're just letting them in.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So let me back up. Maybe about 6 years ago, the majority of folks, almost 2/3 of the folks coming across the border that Border Patrol would apprehend were either Mexicans or Central Americans, right? So Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, a little bit, not that many Panamanians, but some.
And that's the concept that I think most Americans have about the border.
Yeah, right. It's folks coming up from the south. Today, the group I just kind of outlined there is about 1/3. Right.
Oh,
so it's now flipped.
If people are not frightened by that, they just aren't paying attention.
So you've got 2/3 of folks coming across that border are now from all over the world, right? And so you see high numbers of Chinese nationals. You see high numbers of folks from, I'm trying to think, they're not, but, given what's going on in Israel and the like, you still see folks from Lebanon, from Iran, from Syria, coming across the Mexican border. And you're like, oh, well, that's interesting, right? And so under this administration, you've not only had about 280 known or suspected terrorists picked up at the border, you've had about 70,000 what we call special interest aliens. These are individuals that are from countries of concern, and they have travel patterns that mimic terrorist.
What you would do if you were...
So you leave Lebanon and you fly into Brazil, and then you make your way to Colombia, and you, through the Darien Gap, through Central America, to Mexico. Some will fly into Ecuador, who has basically no visas, and then they fly into Tijuana and then come across the border. So there's a variety of different ways that they come across, and all of the traffic patterns are concerning. And so this mass of individuals coming across, it's very hard if you're a Border Patrol agent, right? So 7 out of every 10 Border Patrol agents today are sitting behind a desk because they're processing all these aliens. They're not on what I call on the line, on the border doing their job, what they should be doing. And so they're missing, we've got 1.8 million gotaways thus far. And
you see the
continues to grow.
The video every day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, if you can videotape this for Fox News, obviously, this isn't a pervasive issue.
And so you look at what's going on, and the Biden administration, again, for almost 3 years now, is like, this is what we intended. They won't say that to the American people because that's not a good message, but you just look at their actions.
Right.
You look at all the different times that you had the ability to change course. You had the ability to do something different. And a good example is when we can talk about children. 500,000 children have been trafficked across that border in the last 3 years. 500,000.
That's an enormous
And so
number.
In the midst of this, knowing this, the Biden administration puts out a regulation that says where those children go, they then go to sponsors and to places around the country. We are going to withdraw the requirement to background check that adult who's coming to pick that child up. Withdraw it. They have a rulemaking out there right now that says we're going to get rid of that.
Only because people don't know about this could that ever be executed.
Right.
I mean, that is one of the most...
But it's an intentional, like all of this is planned out. It's not just like, it just happens.
But here's where I have a problem. I have a problem with all of this. But logically, I get stuck on this because I understand, to your point, that the values of the Biden administration when it comes to immigration are very different than your average Americans, certainly different than mine. What is hard for me to conceptualize here is that you have an administration that knows that 2/3 of the migrant population that's moving through are from countries of origin that are not just simply asylum seekers from Mexico or Central American countries, that they're coming from around the world. Knowing that, what did you say it was, 700 or something?
70,000 special interest aliens.
70,000. I mean, we're not that far removed from 9/11.
No. No, I mean, this is what... So the administration will want the American people to believe that everyone coming across is a woman, a child in search of a better life.
Yeah.
And there are some, without a doubt, there are some of those. But there are some really bad individuals coming across that border for a variety of different reasons. And if you're the 1.8 million individuals that have paid a cartel member to smuggle you across that border where law enforcement is not, and you pay a high premium for that, there's a reason.
Yeah.
You're either already a wanted criminal, right?
Right.
And so maybe you just want to do other criminal acts in the United States, or it's something worse.
Right. And in the stats you're talking about, those are just the people that Border Patrol are aware of, right? I mean, there are probably gaps in the border that nobody is even noticing, and I'm sure you have data on that. But what happens to the typical among that 70,000 special interest aliens? What happens to that?
Yeah, so in theory, they're supposed to be interviewed by a law enforcement professional along the border. It's usually Border Patrol, and if they're bad enough, if they are of concern, then they get handed off to other law enforcement or intelligence officials to interview. The problem now is because you're picking up somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 12,000 individuals a day. There's not enough law enforcement.
You're bound to have people.
So you basically just you got to go, right? Because they just do that 24 hours a day.
Yeah,
and 10 to 12,000 people a day. Cincinnati Reds weren't getting 10 to 12,000 people at a game at the end of their season.
It's the 11th largest state in the country. If you add up all the people over the last 3 years that have come across, now not all of them have stayed. The majority of them have, I would say about somewhere between 70 and 80% have stayed. It's the 11th largest state in the country.
So how did riddle me this? Once they've processed people, and now it's amazing for me to see liberal mayors throughout the country
it's great.
all of a sudden
So fantastic.
all of a sudden have taken notice of a border problem that we have because all of these people are being traveled in some way. They're planes, buses, trains, whatever, to New York, Chicago. How are they? Is that a government function that people are like, yes, we're going to have all of these airplanes at the border?
So what happens is, as these individuals come across, so the vast majority of folks, if you're not a got-away, right? So you're not trying to abscond. You're not trying to get away from law enforcement. What they do is they come across the border and they sit down.
Yeah.
And they wait on Border Patrol because they know what's going to happen. They've been coached on what's going to happen. And they get mad when Border Patrol does not come within a couple of hours. So what happens is Border Patrol will get them. They'll process them quickly. They try to fingerprint everyone.
Yeah.
They process them quickly, and then they release them. And all of that happens probably within about 24 hours. And not only do you get released with a plane ticket, a bus ticket, or a train ticket to wherever you want to go in the country, almost exclusively funded by the federal government. Right? And they funnel that to their NGOs. And the NGOs pick up the ticket, but the taxpayer's actually paying for it.
So the NGOs, these non-governmental organizations
and others,
are the ones that pick up the tab for these.
Yeah, but if you look at the amount of grant money that's going to the NGOs
from the federal government,
from DHS, through FEMA, you can track the money. So then they go to a place like New York City or Chicago or anywhere else, and these mayors are starting to get a sense of this is a never-ending flow. Well, absolutely, because it's a never-ending flow,
which
over
is fine with them
border.
as long as it happened in Texas and Arizona and not their home city.
Absolutely. So they get released, go to New York City, and show up for your court date somewhere between 5 and 7 years from now.
Oh, you've got to be kidding!
And the Biden administration knows this. They know that almost all of these individuals are claiming asylum. Only about, I would say, it's 12 to 15% at best.
So dubious claims.
At best will actually qualify. The Biden administration knows this. It's on their website.
But they have a 5 to 7 year horizon.
But they don't care. They're saying everyone has the right to do this. And so that's why, during the Trump administration, we instituted a number of things. Remain in Mexico was designed to address this very issue.
Because you process legit asylum claims before anybody stepped foot in the country.
Right. And you hold them there during the pendency of their immigration proceedings.
Yeah.
So if you're truly fearing for your life, you're happy to wait in northern Mexico.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to go back to wherever you came. But if you know you have a dubious claim, that's probably not what you want to do.
Yeah.
You don't want to wait there.
Well, it also gives it
only to get denied, in 2 months.
It also gives a hell of an incentive to Mexico to stem the tide at the southern tip.
Yeah. Because they don't,
they don't want everybody to
stay there either. They're fine if it's a pass-through.
Yeah.
And they'll tell you that. They told us that, during the Trump administration. They're just passing through.
Yeah, we're fine with that.
We're fine with that.
Oh, man. So let me ask you this. So this has become a big debate here at the end of the year in Congress, where you've had Republicans basically say, we understand there are a bunch of national security issues around the world that need to be addressed, Israel, etc. But we also have to address national security issues like the border policy here in the United States. And so far, you've seen Democrats basically say, well, it's extraneous, right? Like that has nothing to do with.
Yeah, why would we want to actually protect our borders?
Right. I mean, doesn't that blow your mind?
It is. Look, I'll give congressional Republicans and some in the Senate credit because they're actually calling the bluff, right? And there's this idea, of whether it's Ukraine aid or Israel aid, and there's debates around that, around both of those, mainly Ukraine, more or less. This idea that you would give millions and millions, probably billions of dollars to secure their borders and to address the what's going on there, but you won't on the southern border when 100,000 Americans are dying every day because of fentanyl overdose, every year because of fentanyl overdoses.
Yeah.
There's no other place that 100,000 Americans are dying in the world except here in the United States, and it's mainly because of the fentanyl coming across that border and other illegal narcotics and other things that the cartels are doing. And so this is the only time I believe that Republicans have any leverage.
Yeah.
Any leverage on this issue is now. If Democrats and others really want a lot of Ukraine aid, they've got to make changes along that border because you got to protect Americans first and foremost. It should be America first and foremost, and then others.
And it's doable, right? I mean, look, the administration which you served, great progress was made. I mean, people lose sight of that, right? Because it's only a couple of years ago, and you've got this huge problem now. Yeah. But we were reversing a lot of these trends that have all of a sudden come back tenfold. Yeah, we were, at towards the end of the administration, we were removing more individuals than were coming into the country, which is, this other notion, I think a lot of people are like, how can you deport people? Deportation, removal, repatriation, whatever you want to call it, is a fundamental value of our immigration system, which is to say, if someone doesn't have a legal right to be here in the United States, you remove them. Well, it turns out that is, again, in the black letter of the law. Yes, it's actually in the law. In this country, right? But you try talking to the left about that, and they're like, oh my God, you can't remove anyone. You can't send them back home. And you're like, absolutely you can. There's 1.5 million final orders of removal from an immigration judge. 1.5 million that the Biden administration will not remove. You've got to be kidding me. These are individuals that have come, they've probably had 4 court hearings. And every time the immigration judge is like, no, you have no legal, you don't qualify for asylum, all these other reasons you could be here, you don't qualify for any of them. Yeah. 1.5 million on the street today. All of them should be removed. If you want to have any type of law and order in the country, you got to uphold what's the law. You got to do what. Yeah, what's so amazing about that, though, I mean, you're still talking about a group of people who came over the border who's still adhering to things like court dates. Yeah, right. Absolutely. I mean, you're talking about the people who actually followed whatever bizarre set of rules that these people have put into place. I mean, that's got to be a small fraction of the number of people that are actually just coming across. That's right. I mean, the idea. Most of them don't. A lot of them don't ever show up for their court dates. Of course. They will eventually get a final order of removal in absentia, which is to say, you're supposed to be here on this date. You didn't show up. You haven't showed up for 3 others. I'm now signing the order to have you removed. Yeah, if you can find me. Oh yeah, you'll never find them. Right. So well, right. But I'm glad you mentioned you'll never find them, because that, I think, is one of the scariest things about what's happening at the border with these aliens, special interest aliens. So let's say that somebody comes over, they're coached up on what to say, they get through, they're not showing up at their court dates. Is the Biden administration capable of tracking these people and knowing where they are? Let's say that you're an 18-year-old from Yemen, you were raised to hate America, you came over here because somebody paid you to fly into Brazil and walk across the Darien Gap. You want to cause problems for this country. Is it possible that person is untraced in America today? 100%. They're untraced today. The Biden administration has gone a step further and said what we call ERO officers, enforcement and removal officers. These are the individuals that will go out to a stash house or to anywhere else, basically, and pick the individual up and then put them on a plane or wherever to remove them back to their home country, right? And so what the Biden administration has said is an ERO officer, you can't remove anyone unless they're a terrorist or a hardened criminal. So if it's someone like you just mentioned, which is they may not even have a record. You may not even know who they are. But they're a concern because they come from a country of concern and they have a travel pattern. They just didn't, they've been working to get here for 4 months. Yep. And it doesn't appear that they've got a valid asylum claim either. So why do they want to be here? But they release them and say, please show up at a court date sometime in the future. And so, I mean, it blows my mind. And so there's a national security risk. Lessons, weird, right? Yeah. Well, that's just it, sure likes that Cessna. And so, what the Biden administration, I'm glad you brought that up, because they'll say, well, nothing bad has happened. None of these individuals coming in have really done anything, and you're just like, have we not learned anything from 9/11? Right. I mean, this is about prevention. Right. This is about prevention. Right. You want to take steps and actions so that it never gets to that. So it never gets to something happened. We should really do something different now. Oh, man. It's just incredible. I mean, the amount of government the liberals stack on top of each other to prevent people from executing a life of liberty and freedom, and yet people who are crossing our border, it's trust. Mm-hmm. They'll do the right thing. Yeah. And so this idea that, at least during the Trump administration, we said you need a valid asylum claim. We're not the only country that you can seek asylum in. There's probably 100 different countries that you can seek asylum in. And by the way, if you do want to come in, we need to vet you.
right? Those are three fundamental values that, I think most Americans would agree with, that this administration has thrown overboard.
So last question of significant substance here. If there's one thing that you could do in the context of this congressional debate right now in terms of border security, what would that be, you think?
Oof.
I mean, because it's not a one thing. I mean, obviously, this is a much more global issue that we're dealing with, but you're not going to solve it today.
So you got to end catch and release.
Okay.
Okay. So that means two things. That means dealing with the asylum system. That is the holy grail. That is what draws them in. That's what allows them to stay in. And so you have to fix that. And then kind of a close second or third would be remain in Mexico, which is designed to get at the asylum process.
It's all
connected.
Yeah.
It's all connected. And I get that question a lot. It's like, what's the one or two things in the Trump administration that really worked? And I always say we had about 20 different things going on all at the same time because we got sued 5 times a day, right? So things were dropping as courts hit, and then we would put up new things. And so it was never just one thing. It was never 2 or 3 or 4.
But it's all integrated into that asylum.
It was all
claim.
a patchwork, yeah. And so it was designed to keep the cartels at bay, keep them guessing. It takes them about 25 to 30 days to figure out when you put a new policy in place, to figure out what's going on, and then they shift their flow from South Texas to Arizona to wherever else, because you got 9 different Border Patrol sectors, and they know the sectors as well as we do.
What is stopping I understand the Biden administration is, I mean, I don't even know where to begin, but what is stopping us from recognizing these cartels as terrorist groups and recognizing what it is that they're trying to do?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I mean,
I think just will.
That's it, right?
That's it. You know, my approach, and I say it often, is all options should be on the table. So the cartels should be public enemy number one for the United States. Our law enforcement attention should be focused on them. I think even our military attention should be focused on them. Because again, as we talked about, 100,000 Americans are dying largely because of what the cartels are doing. And if that is not number one threat to the country, I'm not sure what is.
Yeah.
When our youth are dying.
Yeah.
In just dramatic numbers, I'm not sure what is. So I would say all options. And so what are those options? So you can designate them as a FTO or foreign terrorist organization. That gets you, there are some issues with that. You can use of military force, right?
Right.
I'm not sure you want to do it, but you want to use it as leverage over Mexico.
Yeah.
To be like, get your
you
shit
take
in
care
order.
of this or we do.
Yeah, or we do. You could do offensive cyber operations against the cartels. They are multinational organizations that are sophisticated, and you can disrupt if you really, really want to. All of it, and there's probably 5 other things you could do. All of it just takes leadership and it takes will.
Oh, man. Well, we need it, and we need it right now. Listen, you brought us some gifts, and I hate to shift this quickly, but this is, I mean, I want to make notice of what you've got here.
I think anytime there's numbers and there's a bottle number on the side here, I don't even know what it is. Whatever. It's got to be good.
If there's a handwritten number on the side of my bottle, I feel good
pretty
about
good.
it.
So you got some Garrison Brothers small batch whiskey here from Texas.
Very
Great
nice.
state of Texas. In this package, of course, it's wrapped in Christmas.
Sure.
flair
No,
here.
it's very nice.
Might be a tumbler or 2 that might have, it might have a government logo on it.
Oh, what a gentleman.
Yeah, it's
what
good.
a gentleman. Everything going all right with you?
It's good. It's good.
Imagine you're staying very busy.
We are. I'm going to do the plug here. We're doing some great work over at the America First Policy Institute, executive director there, and I got about 150 colleagues there that are doing great work. We got 8 other cabinet members from the Trump administration there. So,
incredible.
Yeah. So we are really excited about the work we're doing, and as it leads into next year, which is obviously an important year.
Very important year, and it is refreshing and frankly a little relieving to know that folks like you haven't left the space after your government job was over, that you're continuing to think about things, about how you would solve it if you give them the opportunity again.
Yeah.
So
no, I think that's really important.
Yeah. No question about it. Chad, thanks for coming in, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
One of the most important and most frightening issues in America today is our open border. Chad Wolf was a leader on this issue when he was in charge, and I am just terrified, as I think every one of our listeners should be, about how open it is today and how our government has no idea where some number of the 70,000 aliens of interest are within our country. And I just hope that, I think we should have them back more.
Yeah, no, I think
we
you
need
should
to
be a
have-
regular contributor because there's an awful lot of this stuff that gets washed away in the cable news coverage of it, where you're like, well, here's another 60 seconds of B-roll of people crossing the border, and you're like, yeah, well, this is what I've become accustomed to watching here over the last 4 years.
We've become sort of numb to it all because there's been a lot of coverage. Bill Malugin, for example,
who is
from
just
Fox.
a patriot. The fact that guy does that job every day, and like only in a
crushes that beat.
cylinder of,
Right.
I mean, only Fox
Right.
is doing it.
Right.
Is amazing.
But it's just crazy because you just feel like we've been screaming at a brick wall, and like he's showing all of this footage, which you'd think the country would be demanding this sort of thing.
And it's great having Chad Wolf because he adds the expertise to that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I know.
And also one of the hardest name of the game, Chad Wolf.
Yeah, that's what you
huge
say.
congrats.
Yeah,
huge congrats.
Yeah.
I mean, you sign a check with that, and it's game over.
Well, you got 60 vote confirmation just by putting your name on the
Chad
letterhead.
Wolf.
Don't you? You're going to vote against Chad Wolf?
Yeah, it's like that Ole Miss quarterback Jackson Dart. It's like perfect name for what you do.
Love that. And he spells it the right way, right, Wolf? He spells it the right way.
That's right.
So anyway, I think we've done it, fellas. A good Thursday episode.
A banger.
Good week.
I think so. Absolute banger of an episode, gentlemen. Thank you so much, Chad Wolf, for being on the show. Thank you so much to our listeners. Remember, subscribe on YouTube if you have not yet. So, until next time, minions, keep the faith, hold the wine, and own the libs. We'll see you on Tuesday. Stay ruthless.